Hello, and welcome to Tech Tuesday presented by Delta Media Group, where we would like to caution you to never combine an iPad with a Christmas tree. You'll end up with a pineapple. Get it? Get it? All right. I'll work on a better one for next week. I'm just, there's only so many Christmas jokes out there. It's after Thanksgiving now. It's time. Anyway, so today we will take a look at the email campaign system. It's been a little while since we've really gone through the campaign system in depth, and we have added some new functionality to it. So we'll get in there and take a look and see what kinds of things it can do. So specifically, I'm talking about the campaigns and action plans system is how it's labeled. So if I go here, if you do have the drop-down menu under the marketing tab available, you may find campaigns and action plans here. So that will cover the creation of a drip marketing campaign that can also include the automatic creation of tasks within it. So the neat thing about that is that you can essentially make an action plan out of it. You can have customers added to it automatically and then have it, say, send them an email right away to welcome them. And then maybe in 14 days, it creates a to-do or a task for you to follow up with a call. And then maybe in another 10 days, it sends another email. And 5 more days, maybe it sends a text message. So you get the general idea. And then we also have a lot of pre-built content that you can choose from in there. So to get to that system, again, we can go to marketing, expand that, go down to campaigns and action plans. If that is available to you, you may also have a link on your marketing landing page. So if I just click on marketing, you can see I've got a tile here for manage campaigns that is customizable per company. So you may not have that link. And then the other way to get there, if you don't see the link in either of those places, is I can just type campaign up here into the quick actions bar. And you can see we have a manage campaigns link here as well. So however you choose to get to it, this is where you'll find yourself. Now, what we're looking at here is the overall campaigns overview. So what it's showing us is all campaigns that are active. So if there are any inactive campaigns in here, it's not displaying those here, but we can use these filters to kind of narrow that down also. So what we'll do is just take a look at this page kind of piece by piece and just break it down so you can see what everything does. There's a lot of repeat functionality in here, which is actually kind of nice. So you have multiple ways of getting to the same page or the same resource. So that's actually kind of cool. So you can always find your way to whatever it is you need to find your way to. So first off, we have these 3 buttons along the top. Now, right now, as I said, this is filtered to active customers, but I can click this button, or active campaigns, but I can click on this button to filter it to active campaigns that also have customers in them. The significance there is that a campaign can be active, like here's a good example. So we have this buyer's 1-year anniversary campaign. It has 13 emails in it, just we've labeled it that way. And it's all active, it's ready to run, but it doesn't have any customers in it. Because it doesn't have any customers in it, it won't actually do anything. You have to actually put a customer or associate a customer with this campaign or a customer group with this campaign in order to get it to actually have someone to send out to or someone to create tasks for. So that gives you the idea there. So if we want, we can filter this down to just active campaigns that have customers in them. And the easiest way to do that, I'll just click this button. And you can see it narrows this list down so that now we only see the ones where they have customers. And the status is changed accordingly. The next thing we have here is I can click on customer groups and it will collapse the campaign section and expand the groups section. This is exactly the same groups interface that exists on the customer center. So it just gives you convenient access to it because often you'll find yourself adding groups to campaigns instead of individual customers. And this allows you to manage those groups from the same page without having to go anywhere else. And then lastly, I can click on default actions and you can see it expands this default actions section. And this is just kind of a breakdown of some of the automations that are set up in some of these campaigns. So a good example of that would be the very first one here. Customers with an initial request source of AdWizard lead are added to the campaign. Agent enable test. A lot of test things in here. But the idea is we have that campaign set to target this request source. So if any customer comes in and this is how they came into the system, this is what their initial request source is, then they'll automatically be dropped into that campaign. And that's what this is telling us. All right, so we will collapse that and we'll expand our campaign section again. Now to take a look at the filters, the first thing we have here is we can filter these campaigns by title. So if I just type group here, for example, you can see that it filters down to just campaigns that contain the word group in the title. So it's a very easy way that I can track down specific campaigns if I'd like. Keep in mind that it is also subject to the rest of these filters. So Right now I'm looking at active with customers. If I change this to inactive, you can see there's no result here. So the idea is that if this status was inactive and I was searching for a specific campaign, I could type group here, or anything else really. I wouldn't find any matches that are active campaigns. So keep that in mind. If you type something here and nothing comes up and you expect it to, check these other filters to make sure you're not filtering it some other way. So just change this to all so that we have plenty to look at. There we go. And now you can see that it actually shows 3 results. So we'll get rid of that one. Now the next thing we have here is the type dropdown. So from here I can choose personal. So these would be campaigns that I myself have created. I can change it to company. So these would be campaigns that the company has created and made available to me. And then lastly, we have system campaigns. So this would be a campaign that Delta has created and made available to everyone on the Delta platform, and that the company also has available to you. The company does have the ability on the admin side to turn off individual campaigns if they choose, or if they don't fit your market or your business plan, however, whatever reason they decide, basically. So we'll switch that back to all. The next option we have here is chained. So this is just a yes or no. What chained means, if a campaign is set to chained, that means that basically you have a limited number of emails in a campaign, or a limited number of messages or actions. And if you add a customer to a campaign and they have received all those emails or been through and those actions have been created for them, like they've reached the end of that campaign, if the campaign is chained, that means that that customer will automatically be moved to the campaign that the first one is chained to. So the idea is if they've gotten every message that this first campaign has to offer, they'll automatically be moved to the next one so that they can continue to receive emails even though they're not getting them from that original campaign anymore. So this filter just allows us to see the ones that are chained out, or just filter to the ones that are not. So we'll switch that back to all as well. And the last thing we've kind of looked at briefly is status. So it is set to all right now, so it's going to show me every campaign regardless of whether or not it is active and regardless of whether or not there are any customers in it. From there I can switch to active. There we go. So now we're looking at only active campaigns that it doesn't care if there are any customers in them, so just the fact that they're active. Next we have active with customers. So there we are, which was the same result we get from just clicking this green button. And then we have active without customers, just in case we want to see all of the active campaigns that are basically usable to us, so we know which ones we want to add customers to. So we can go through very easily and add customers to those. And then lastly, we can look at just the inactive campaigns. And in this case, there actually aren't any, so there's nothing to look at there. So we'll switch this back over to all. Now the next thing we have here is the Add New Campaign button. This just allows you to create a new campaign. So if you wanted to create a new personal campaign, you would click on Add New Campaign. This is if this functionality is turned on for you at company level. You would give this campaign a title, My Drip Marketing Campaign. There we go. We can choose the scope of the campaign, so we can leave that as private so that it's only visible to us. If this functionality is turned on for you, you can also make it public so that other agents can see this campaign you create. It may or may not be turned on for you. The next option is external trigger. So right now this just has a mortgage rate trigger that is attached to it. What this allows you to do is basically set day one of the campaign, so the day the campaign starts. Instead of picking a specific date, you can say start sending to everyone who's in this campaign on the day that mortgage rates reach whatever it is you choose. So you can see 30-year fixed mortgage in general, they're around 3.1% right now. So if I wanted to say, if that hits 3%, start it, well, I would say external trigger equals below the value. And we'll go down here and say the trigger value is going to be 3%. So now, if the interest rate drops below 3% on a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, and I believe we update this every day, if the interest rate drops below 3%, that will trigger this campaign to begin. So basically it triggers day one of the campaign. So if you have an email set to go out on day one, that email will be sent on that day to every customer that's in the campaign. If you have an email set to go to day 14, then it'll count out 14 days after this target interest rate is hit, and then after 14 days, it'll fire off that email. So there's a general idea there. Now you can also choose the rates for 15-year or 5-year mortgage. So we'll leave that on none for now. And actually, just real quick while we're in here, 30-year fixed rate, you can see we can also have it trigger when the interest rate goes above a certain value. So equals or below is the default, but we can say greater than greater than or equal, and then we have less than the value, or less than or equal to the value, or just equals the value. So you see the options we have available there. Generally, less than or equal to is the one that kind of makes the most sense when you're talking about interest rates, because usually you'll kick it off when the interest rates get low enough. That way it's, enticing potential buyers, saying, hey, the interest rates are lower than ever, you should be searching for a new home. So that's the general idea. But the hope is that we can add some more external triggers later on, and then those other comparisons might make more sense. So we'll close that out. Now the next thing we can do is we can have this campaign end on click-through. So what that would mean is, let's say you created a campaign that will send out 10 emails over the course of 6 months. You could set this toggle to on, and that would mean that when the customer receives one of those emails, if they click on a link in that email to pass through to your website, they will not receive any emails from this campaign after that. So that'll be the last one that they get from this campaign. And it makes sense in certain applications. And the next thing we have here is the end notification functionality. So if I switch this on, then that means that once the customer reaches the end of this campaign, you'll receive a notice telling you that this customer, and we'll give you their name, has reached the end of a campaign. And really that's an indicator for you to go in and set them up for another campaign. So, they stop receiving emails from this one, but you do want to keep reaching out to them and, stay in touch with them and stay engaged. So it's telling you that they're not getting any more emails from this campaign, so that you can go in and add them to another, or set up a market watch, or, reach out to them in some other way. And then lastly, this is where we set up the chain functionality. So for chain campaign, we can just click this button, go down here, and select the campaign we want to chain this one out to. So you can see once the customer reaches the end of this campaign, the system will automatically move them over to this one so they can start getting the emails from this campaign as well. Something that's kind of a neat way to do that is people will set up a finite campaign. So basically, say it sends an email on day 1, and then another one on day 10, and another one on day 30, and then 60, and then 90, and it counts out like that to just stay in touch. And then let's say at day 180, it stops sending emails. That's the last email. From there, you might chain it out to just like a holiday campaign that will go on indefinitely, because that'll send an email out on that holiday or near that holiday every year. So that campaign really doesn't have an end. So that's kind of the idea as to how that functionality would be used. So once you have this all set up the way you'd like, you click Save. That creates a new blank template. That will then add it to this list, and you can see I canceled that one because we don't need another one to test with here. But that'll drop it into this list where you can then go into the campaign, add messages to it, add customers to it, and work with it from there. So, moving on to the campaigns themselves, actually managing those campaigns. So we'll take a look at our message group test campaign, because that gives us some good examples here. Now you see first, we can click on the campaign title here at the beginning, and that opens up the emails and actions modal. So from here, this is where I can preview all the emails. I can add new emails. This one actually has message groups within it. So we'll go over message groups as well. It's a specific type of message that you can add to a campaign. But this allows you to see all of those campaigns and actions that are part of the campaign. If you click on View, that will show you a preview of that particular message. This one, because it is a message group, there's actually multiple messages within this group. So the very first one is this is an SMS message, and if I preview the next message, this is the second SMS message in that group, and then here's an email in that group, and here's the other email in that group. I'll close that out, click here again, there we go. So that's the first thing you can do here is view the previews of those. And you may have noticed you could also send those previews. So if it was an email, you could send yourself an email preview of that message, so you actually see it in your email and not just in the browser. Next, you have the ability to manage the message group. And then we also have actions where we can disable just this message. So the idea is that everyone in this campaign would get every message except for the disabled ones. So you could disable individual messages without disabling the whole campaign. We can also edit draft. We can also remove it altogether, or we can click on the history and we can see everyone that it has sent to in the past, and what day it sent, what email address it sent to, and then whether or not they opened it, and whether or not they clicked through on it. And then lastly, with this modal, we can create a new email SMS message if you do have a virtual phone number and the SMS messaging turned on, or create an additional action, which would be a to-do or a task. So we'll close this out, And this is our holidays one. So this one gives you an example of the individual emails. So if it's not a message group, you can see we can view it here, which shows it to us in the browser. And then we can actually cycle through all of the messages in this campaign. And then we can use previous email to cycle back through them. But that's not taking us through the messages in the group. That's taking us through all of the messages in the campaign itself. So it was actually jumping from each one of these messages. And then next we can click on send and then punch in our email address if we want to send ourselves a preview of that one. Send preview, and it just confirms that it sent the preview. All right, so we'll open back up our test campaign. Now, if this is a campaign that you have access to, so it's either your personal campaign or it is a system campaign or company campaign that you do have access to create your own modified version of, then you'll have this Add New Email, SMS, and Action button down here at the bottom. So if we click on that, you can see it gives us the option of creating a message group, creating a new email, creating a new SMS message, which again, only if you have a virtual phone number activated will that option be there, or creating a new action, which allows you to create a new to-do. So the first thing we'll do is we'll click on New Message Group. Here we are. So to create a message group, what this is doing is we're going to set a single send type or interval or send date on this. And then what's going to happen is when that date happens, whatever trigger date we use, whenever that date arrives, the system is going to send out one message from this group. And the way it will choose that message is it will pick an SMS message first, so a text message first, and then if the customer is not eligible to receive an SMS message, let's say they don't have a phone number entered into the system, or they're not opted into receiving SMS messages or text messages, then they'll receive the email alternate instead if you do have an email in here. So we'll give you an idea how to set this up. So for our first message, we're going to set it as an SMS message. And you can see it tells me it's going to remove this editor because we're not going to create an HTML SMS message. So it just simplifies that quite a bit. And we'll highlight everything there and clear it out. And we can set this to go out on interval. So this would be day 1. So this would be the day the customer is added to the campaign. It'll automatically send this. Or I could set it to go out on day 14 or 60 or whatever I choose. But that's counting from the day the customer was added to the campaign or from the day that the trigger date happened if you are or if this is a campaign that's driven by that trigger date. We can also pick a specific date, and you can see that you can have recurring dates in here. So I could say, the first of every month. Or I can pick a specific date if I only want it to go out this year. So I could choose this year, January 1st, which obviously is past. Next year, January 1st. So you get the idea there. Next, we can go off of birthday. So it's going to look at the birthday that is set on the customer accounts that are in this campaign, and it would automatically send this message on that day. And then we have purchase anniversary, the same thing, but looking at the purchase anniversary date. And this is actually the most recent purchase anniversary date, since you can't add more than one transaction there. Next, we have agent work anniversary. Now, this is something else. What this has to do is this will send out a campaign message to agents on their work anniversary date. So this isn't something that you will use as often unless you are an admin. And then next we have wedding anniversary, which again is just looking at that same, just a different field for the date on the customer account. So we'll set this one to interval and we'll have it send on day 14. Why not? Just checking in. Now, because this is an SMS message, this subject is just for reference. This is so that I can easily identify this particular message. There really is no subject line in a text message. So really, the only thing they'll receive as a text message is whatever content I put in this box here. So I'll say, hi there, just checking in. There we go. So now we'll save our message. So there we go. We've now created a message group that contains one SMS message. So let's go ahead and add another one. So add another one, SMS, and it makes it look the same. We'll say, hi there, just checking in. There we go. So now we have an alternate SMS message. So we'll save that one. There's our next one. Now add another message, but we'll do an email this time. Now, because this is an email, we have all these system variables and formatting and things we can work with as well. So I'll say dear, and we'll use our system variables to say customer name first. So there's customer's first name. How are you? sincerely. There we go. And then go down here and we can add our signature in here. Let's see. Lead signature. There we are. We put it at the top. But that's okay. It'll put our system variables wherever our cursor is, but all it's doing when it sends this out is it's replacing this little shortcode with the contents of what's in that data field. So when it sends to a customer, it's going to replace customer first name with the customer's first name. For lead signature, it's going to replace this little snippet here with the signature that I have set up in my lead settings. So there's our email. So we'll save this one. And let's add one more. There we go. Gives you the general idea. Okay, so to kind of lay this all out or put this whole thing together, what this will do now right now it's just saved as a draft. So it exists, but it's not actually published. So if I had this as an existing campaign that was running and I had customers added to it, they'd receive every other email in this campaign, but they wouldn't receive this one because I haven't published it yet. So that's what we're going to do when we click this publish button. But we've got all our emails set up here. Now what this will do after I publish it is when this date arrives, and we said day 14, I believe. So 14 days after a customer is added to this campaign, if they are opted into receiving SMS messages, they'll get one of these two messages at random. If they're not, then it'll fall back to the email and it will send them one of these two emails at random. So I'm kind of showing you two different pieces of functionality at once. Typically, you would create something like this for one of two reasons. Either you want to be able to cater to those customers that are opted in to receiving text messages as well as those that aren't with the same campaign. So you would set up one SMS message, they'll get that if they're opted in, and then one email. They'll get the email if they're not opted in. And you could even include a note in the email that says, hey, if you opt into text messaging, then I can send you text messages as well. Something like that. So that's one piece of functionality here. Now, the next piece is I could set up several emails in here, maybe 10 emails. So what it's going to do is choose one of those emails at random when it actually sends out. The reason I would do that is, let's say I'm setting up a birthday email. I could then set up a whole bunch of different templates or a whole bunch of different versions of the same birthday email so that every customer that gets it doesn't necessarily get the same one. Instead, they get one of 10 chosen at random each time. And that also applies for a customer that'll stay in it long term. So if you're going to send them a birthday card automatically every year, then that way there is a greater chance that they won't get the same birthday card over and over again. They'll have a 1 in 10 chance of getting the same birthday card 2 years in a row. So that's the idea there. And the same can be done for the other card types, wedding anniversary, purchase anniversary, all that. So it's designed to just mix up the emails you're sending out so that you're not always sending the same one to every customer and repeatedly every year. So now that we're all set up here, I'll click on Publish. So that published our message group. And you can see here's our day 14, just checking in message group. So that's all set to go. Now the next thing we can add here is I'll add another one and we'll say new email. This is all exactly the same, only I'm not setting up a group here. I'm just setting up the one email. So all these dates, all that means the same. The content all means the same. But then when I publish this one, it's just going to be a single email, and that's the email that it'll send on that date. And now we'll go back in here. Now the next thing we can do, add new one. We can add a new text message. Exactly the same thing. It works exactly the same way, except it's just a single text message email. And then next we have actions, and this is the only interface that's a little bit different. So when I click on that, we can create task or we can add market watch. So what this will do is if we create a task, then we can create a task, we can assign it to ourselves, or if you're on a team, you could have it automatically assigned to another team member. There we go, we'll leave this one assigned to myself. We set the date up in exactly the same way, interval, date, recurring, however we want to do that. And then we just put some text in here, and that is the text that will appear in that task that it creates for me. So it'll show up on my to-dos interface or my tasks interface, and I'll be able to see that on the day that it's created. And now the next thing I can do is I can attach a market watch instead. So what this will do is allow me to automatically attach one of my bulk market watches to this customer. So you can see when I click on this, these are all the different market watches that I have set up in the bulk market watches system. So that's the system you can find under marketing and market watch reports, or again, like any other page, you could search for it in the quick actions here. We can also just click this button, and that will take us straight over to that market watch reports page. And I'll go ahead and click it. It opens in a new tab, so we don't have to worry about losing where we are. Now these are all of my bulk market watches. So I can go in here, I can create a new bulk market watch or use any of my existing ones. And then here I'll be able to select that. So then on whatever day I choose is the day that, and this is only interval based, but whatever day I choose here, it will automatically attach this market watch to that customer. So I could change this to day 30, and that would mean 30 days. We'll pick a market watch here. There we go. So 30 days after a customer is added to this campaign, the system will automatically create this market watch for them and set the interval of that market watch to monthly. So that means that they'll receive that market watch report email once a month. Now, market watch report, just to give you a little background there, is just an email that goes out periodically on an interval, and that email contains various market statistics for whatever market you choose to target. So in this case, I'm targeting Canton City School District for this market watch I created. So it's going to send some market information and some sample listings related to that market, like recent listings that are new to the market, recently sold listings in that market, average number of listings available in that market at any given time over the past few years is about how far back it'll go depending on how much data we have, average listing price, average days on market, things like that. So just a market statistics report. And it's a nice way to stay engaged with something automated. So you don't have to go in and send this repeatedly. You just set it up and let it roll. So we'll go ahead and publish that. Why not? There we go. So now if we open our message group test campaign again, you can see here's all our messages. And then if we wanted to delete any, if I didn't want my just checking in campaign, for example, I can click on actions, and we kind of already looked over this, but I can disable it so it won't send. I can edit draft here, which in the case of a message group just allows me to edit its send date, since I would have to go into the message group and manage those messages individually to change their contents. So I would just go in here if I want to change the actual send date. But I can change that, and then I can save that as a draft if I don't want the send date to update right away or go into effect right away, or I can publish it, and then it will start using the new date. So cancel out of that and go back in here. So there you have it. So that is how you can set up the emails within those. So now we can close out this interface, and as we move along here, the next thing we have is a column that indicates that it is a personal market watch. Or market watch. I've got market watches on the brain now. A personal campaign. So that means this is one that I've set up myself, as we kind of went over. Next, I can see whether or not this one is set to chain out to any other campaigns. And if I click on this, it will load up that edit campaign interface, which will allow me to actually set it to chain to another campaign or change any of these other settings if I so choose. Next, we have emails. So all this does is open that email and action modal again so that I can make modifications there. So the idea is that to be just as user-friendly as possible. You can click here and you can see all those messages, or if you click on under emails, it loads up that same interface. Now actions actually show in the same interface. So if I click there, it loads up the same one because I see all the emails and actions in the same place anyway. So that is how I would get to those. And then the next thing we have in line here is customers. So when I click on that one, we finally get a new interface here. This is how I manage all the customers that are now a member of this group, or basically that will be included in this campaign. So my options here are I can add all new and existing contacts, in which case everyone that gets added to the system or added to my customer database, regardless of how they get added, whenever they get added here, they'll automatically be added to this campaign and start getting these emails and messages. Or I can add specific ones, in which case I can choose a request source here. And we kind of alluded to that a little bit when we looked at the default actions in the beginning. But I could choose any of these request sources, and then any customer that gets assigned to me that came from one of these sources originally will automatically be in this campaign. This can be particularly nice for Zillow, for example. So I can search these. So I'll go ahead and type in Zillow. You can see Zillow Group ZTC is one of the options here. So if I had set up Zillow Tech Connect so that leads that come into Zillow are automatically added to the DeltaNet, I could pick up those leads automatically and have them automatically added to this campaign. That kind of allows me to build a campaign that is specific to those customers, that's designed to really engage best with customers that came from that source. So that gives you a general idea how that works. I'll clear that out. So the next thing we have here is the ability to add and remove groups. So I can select any one of these groups, anyone selected will be in this campaign, and anyone that's not selected will not be in the campaign. It's also worth noting that, so I have 81 groups here, multiple pages of groups. I've selected a few on page 1, so we'll go to page 3, select a couple more, go out to page 4. Now if I were to save it right now, all of the ones I've selected, regardless of what page they're on, will be added to this campaign. So the idea there is that just because you can't see them doesn't mean they won't be added. Now the other thing is I can go up here and I can show more results per page, and I can see all those on one page too. So we don't set it there by default because it loads up a lot for one thing, and also you've got a lot of scrolling to do if you have a lot of groups there. So we'll switch that back to 10. But you get the idea there. This is also searchable, just like the request sources are. So if I was looking for a specific group, I could type it in there. And then on down the line, next we have our how we would add individual customers to this group. So from here, it works exactly like groups. Anyone that I select is in the campaign, and you can see they're automatically being added as I check them. And anyone that's not selected is not in the campaign. Simple enough. We'll uncheck that one. Has been removed. It's very good about updating me. Now the other neat thing I can do here, and something we recently added, is if I want to see only the customers that I have selected. So as it is, they'll be checked. So if I close this out and come back to this page, all the ones I checked will still be checked because they've been added. But I would have to go page by page to find everyone that's in this campaign, right? So what we added was the ability to show only selected customers. So that narrows this list down so we only see those that are in the campaign. So it's a very easy way for us to pull those up and potentially remove anybody that we don't believe should be there. Now the next thing we can do is we could show unselected customers. So that way it leaves out all the selected ones and just makes it easier for me to run through and select them real quick, and you can see they drop out when I select them. I'll switch that back to show all, and then you can see the ones I have selected. There we go. So, and then just like the groups interface, I could expand this so that I can see up to 100 entries per page, and then I can also page through these. Again, anyone that's selected is in, anyone not selected is not. So when I have this set up the way I want, I would just click Save, and that would save all of the campaign associations that I've created here, be it group or request source, whatever it is I've set. Save saves it all, so then they start receiving the messages in this campaign as long as it's active. So I'll cancel that one out. And now the next thing we have in line here is in the Actions column. We can expand Actions, and we can see first we can preview the emails. So this is just another shortcut to take us to this Preview Email section. So I can cycle through each of the messages, and in this case I'm cycling through message groups because that's what this contains. There we go. And then I can cycle through the messages within the message group using this Preview Next Message button. Or I can click Send Preview to actually send myself a preview of that message. Now this is a text message, so it asks me for a phone number here, and if I click Send, it will actually text that to me. If it was an email, it would ask me to enter an email address, and it'll already have my public email address in there, so I won't actually have to re-enter it. And then I can click Send Preview to fire that preview off. Now the next thing we have under Actions is we can set this campaign to inactive. So that is kind of nice if you just want to temporarily stop sending a campaign. So you can have a campaign that's set up and active and has a whole bunch of customers in it, but you don't want it sending out right now. So you can set it as inactive instead of removing all the customers. That way it's just a quick way to turn it off, and then they stop getting those messages. And then if you want to turn it back on, you can just set it back to active again. You don't have to go in and add all the customers back in. Next we have Message Group Emails SMS Actions. So if we click on that, that's just a shortcut for us to add a new message or message group or SMS message or action to this. So a convenient shortcut for that. Next we have Customers and Groups. That will open up that Manage Customers and Groups interface that we just went over. And then next we have Edit Campaign Settings. So that takes us back to this Edit Campaign page where we can change the name, the scope, chain the campaign, so we have access to all those settings again if we want to change them after the fact. So it's important to keep in mind that when you create a new campaign, you don't have to be, these things aren't set in stone. You can go back and you can edit it later on to activate or deactivate any of this functionality as you see fit. And the next piece we have here is Duplicate Campaign. So in the case of a campaign that you've created, a personal campaign, I don't know what the use case would be for that, to be honest. However, if it is a company campaign that is not editable to you, you could use this duplicate campaign functionality to create your own duplicate of the entire campaign. And then because that campaign is yours, you could go and modify all the messages in it however you see fit. So that's really where that functionality fits in. Now, there's also the possibility that you'd want to duplicate a personal campaign, but you would have to tell me what the when you find a good use for that, you would have to tell me. And then lastly, of course, we have the ability to delete the campaign. Again, all of these settings won't exist for every campaign, or rather all of these actions won't exist for every campaign. They exist on this one because it is a personal campaign that I created, so I have access to do whatever I want with it. However, if it were a system campaign or a company campaign, that might not be the case. So here's our holiday system campaign. You see I don't have the option of deleting this one. If I go down here, here's a company campaign. You can see I have even fewer options related to this company campaign, and that's really based on how this campaign was created at the company level and how it was made available to you settings-wise from the company admins. So there you have it. Now the only other thing I'll point out here is you can see we're only showing 1 to 10 of 82 total campaigns, and we have this same show entries box down here that would allow me to see more per page. So I can go out to 50 and I can see, or 100. You can see it's not cooperating with me. But aside from that, I can see multiple campaigns per page, or increase the number that I see per page by using that dropdown. So there you have it. That is the campaign system. So that is how you can set up a campaign in the DeltaNet all your own, and how you can modify any existing campaigns. So as always, thanks for joining me. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to send an email into support@deltagroup.com, or give us a call and we can walk you through the campaign system or anything else you need. Thanks a lot.